Hi, everyone. Nice to see you again. It is 1:30 in the morning on Sunday night / Monday morning, and I wanted to make sure I got this out to all of you um, in time so that you can have as much time during the week to look at this and to work on it as possible. Today, I'm going to be talking about the two short stories that we'll be reading for this week, which are Flannery O'Connor's A Good Man is Hard to Find, and Joyce Carol Oates's Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? This is going to be pretty quick, I hope, in terms of a discussion. Most of it will be on the screen that you see in front of you. I'm going to do a share screen and just kind of go over some quick notes that I took for this. It'll work great in conjunction with the discussion board and the T4 and the quiz that you have. So make sure you are keeping up with all of those, as well as the literary terms PowerPoint that I've posted on Canvas. Everything's on Canvas. Also, so you know, the rough draft is on Canvas. It's under discussion board. So if you're looking for it, it is a discussion board post because it's the rough draft, and I want to make sure that we get a look at those. So I'm going to go into share screen now, so that we can all look at the notes, the really intelligent, insightful 1:30 a.m. notes I wrote on these stories. I'll probably do some, nitpicky highlighting and stuff as I go. So just bear with me because I'm insane. And again, I'm doing this very late at night. So the first thing you'll notice on these WebTeach notes, I've started with Oates, where are you going and where have you been? I forgot to add a question here. And the question I have here is like, why the, I don't want to say the ode, but why the dedication to Bob Dylan, do you think? I mean, this is published in 1966, right? Like when Dylan is really getting popular, gaining momentum, all those sorts of things. And this story is dedicated to Bob Dylan. There's actually a specific song of Dylan's that it is supposed to be dedicated to, or in reference to, which is It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, I believe. I'll double check that in case I'm wrong. Might be like a Rolling Stone, but I think it's All Over Now, Baby Blue. So why the dedication to Dylan? And then think about how we would apply our week's literary terms, like we always do, to these stories. So where do you see foreshadowing? When are you experiencing suspense as you read? And think about other literary terms you're seeing at work. Symbolism in terms of characterization might be a big one. Protagonist and antagonist, just like we talked about last week, they're not always what you think they are, right? They're not always the hero and the villain. Sometimes they're the opposite, right? Or sometimes they're just something totally different. Other forms of characterization, irony, imagery, etc. And if you hear a weird noise in the background, that is my dog snoring, so just FYI. I'm really curious to see what you make of this story. The reason why I wrote that down is, the first time I read this story, I had kind of inklings or little like maybe fluffy clouds of what I thought it was referring to, but every time I read it, I kind of get something different out of it, and I'm really excited to see like how you respond to the discussion board prompt. And I don't want to theorize too much because I'd rather see what your theories are. So what is your interpretation, and why is the story like the way it is? However you interpret it, right? Just back that up and don't just summarize the thing clearly. Okay, so that's really all we have to say. I mean, clearly you're going to say a lot for Oates, so I'm not going to keep yammering away. So I'll move on to O'Connor's A Good Man is Hard to Find. I'll just scroll down so you can see the rest of this here. Just like with Oates, we have the literary terms foreshadowing and suspense, and look for those in the story, like where you see them, where you experience them. O'Connor I would say the majority of Flannery O'Connor's short stories are dripping with irony, right? But really think about how it's achieved. O'Connor is talking about things that can be very bleak, right? Or that can make us incredibly uncomfortable. The N-word is mentioned in this story in a very sort of, well, not by the author, but a character says it in a very sort of glib or flippant way, right? Like just whatever, N-word. So we have those moments of like great discomfort or even great danger or seriousness, but this is not a dramatic story in the sense that it's not sort of overly emoting gravitas, right? There's a lot of silliness, there's a lot of sort of caricature. Characters in this are incredibly laughable, and their behaviors, right? Like I laugh out loud when I read O'Connor all the time. So think about that achievement of that tension, right? That balance between the serious, the scary, possibly the depressing, the dangerous, the deadly, the uncomfortable, with the sort of silly, comedic, over the top, exaggerated representations of some of these things. So why is O'Connor working so hard to strike this balance? That's a question that I want you to consider, because it's an important question when we think about her literature specifically, and her output. And then finally, you know, I love a compare and contrast chart and a Venn diagram and all those things. So what I did here is, you know, just on your own, I'll try and minimize this just ever so slightly so we can see the whole dang thing. I want you to think about, and I'll move my ugly, well, not ugly, I'm not ugly, I just am what I am. I'll move my face out of the way so you can see. I want you to think about the similarities and differences in the stories. Because again, just like last week with Tan and Mukherjee, we can very easily perform one of these comparison and contrast or Venn diagram things based on topic or based on character. And so I've listed some here for you that'll kind of maybe generate some ideas for that discussion board post. And if you're, you know, not seeing something you thought of, you're not wrong, right? Again, it's 1:30 in the morning. I'm not the smartest person on the planet. There are plenty of things that I'm not, you know, catching right now that you're probably seeing. So that being said, if there's something else that you notice that you want to add to your own chart, go for it, right? This is all note taking. So this is where the ideas get to really fly, right? And the risks get taken because it's low stakes. So think about, you know, Good Man is Hard to Find by O'Connor. Think about Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been by Joyce Carol Oates. And, you know, think about how these things are treated in these stories, right? Think about female characters, right? Because these are two female authors and they are presenting their female characters in a certain way. They're treating them in very specific ways. And again, we always have to ask why. Think about just the tone or the mood of that foreboding, that ominousness, that doom, that sense of doom, right? That contribute to the foreshadowing and suspense that we're noticing. Where we see them in either story, again, why they're relevant or important, etc. Another one, and I made this very general, but like the status quo, right? If you think about maybe characters like Connie's mother, or clearly, you know, in Oates, or clearly the grandmother in O'Connor. What are these writers saying about sort of the status quo of not only the times, but the places in which they live? Like, what comment might they be making? Both of these stories have a dangerous stranger. So think about, again, the function of that dangerous stranger, the presence, the traits, how that dangerous stranger is described and what he does, because in both instances he's a man. So yeah. This is a really dorky one, but I just thought of it. The role of automobiles in this story. You know, we're both, I think O'Connor is 1953, and as I said, Oates is 66, the years that they published these stories. So this is like, you know, mid 20th century America. So I think that there's a whole essay in writing about the role of automobiles in these stories, but what do I know, you know? Family conflict, as always, right? Who are these people in conflict with, and why, and how do we see it, right? Like, I mean, one of the most like hilarious relationships in the history of the short story is between Bailey and the grandmother, right? Like, just such a mess, and I love it. Let's see. The next one is the character who bit off more than she could chew, so to speak. Again, this one kind of goes back to the first one, but not really. It can be a whole nother way of looking at it. But, you know, these people who sort of think they're capable of doing things, or just think of themselves in ways that might not be accurate, right? Particularly our protagonists, right? So, and then the actions of these characters that create, you know, some of these plot points that we talked about last week, like the rising action and the climax and the denouement and all these things. So consider those. Innocence versus experience, you know, and what we that might kind of go into these characters too. Like, what do we expect a 15-year-old girl to think, believe, or behave like, right? What do we expect a grandmother to think, believe, or behave like? And how do these characters express those things, those expectations? How do they push against them? How are they similar or different in terms of their age and their world knowledge? And how does that function within the story? And, you know, then I said, what else? Well, there's always death, right? Like in all these stories. Yeah. Professor King is a morbid one, no getting around that, right? So, but if there's anything else that you think of that you're looking at this list and you're going, I thought of this, right? That doesn't mean that you're wrong or that your approach to the stories is any less valid than mine. It just means, you know, for like the 40th time, I'll say this, it's 1:30 in the morning and my brain's just not firing on all cylinders, but I'm doing my best, right? And I'm making sure that we get these notes out so that you can get the full experience, you know, as students at Fullerton College, given the circumstances. All right, well, that's about it as far as, I think that's it, as far as notes, yes, that is it. So I'll bring it back to the screen. Hi. But, you know, think about these things, think about, I can't wait to see what you all have to say about these stories. I hope you like them. Even if you don't, sometimes I get, you know, I won't say sometimes, a lot of times I get great ideas from people who really just hate stuff, right? So don't worry about that, right? This your job is not to agree with me. It's to think critically, which is like, can be the opposite of agreeing with me. Anyway, I'm gonna go to sleep because I'm gonna go to sleep. I would say I was gonna go watch Westworld, but I've been working for 12 hours straight, so now it's time for bed. I'll watch Westworld in the morning. But hope you all have a great night and great week, and see you in cyberspace. Okay.